Hi everybody, it's Miss Cole and I have another poem to share with you. And so I'm going to read the poem and then share some thoughts. This poem is called To Be of Use and it's by Marge Piercy. The people I love the best jump into work head first without dallying the shallows and swim off with sure strokes almost out of sight. They seem to become natives of that element, the black, sleek heads of seals, bouncing like half-submerged balls. I love people who harness themselves, an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and the muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who stand in line and haul in their places, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing, well done, has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn, are put in museums. But you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person for work that is real. So part of the reason that I love this is because I have a job that is real, that is meaningful, that I believe in its purpose. And I chose that because it's valuable to me. There is value in doing something that helps other people, that is needed, that is useful, that is meaningful. There are a lot of ideas worth exploring there, because also I create things and I enjoy things that are maybe not necessary for life and sustenance, but that are nice, that are enjoyable. Art, stories. I think there's a case to be made that stories actually are necessary. Just in the way that humans exist as social creatures and as thinking creatures, I believe, and I would love to see there are people doing research on the common features of stories across cultures and the way that storytelling has developed and the way that it seems to be innate in who we are. I'd love to see some more research on that. I'd love to do some research on that, but that would probably mean giving up teaching, and I'm not willing to do that. So it's about priorities. I talk to my students about that a lot. And again, the priority of work that is meaningful, that helps people, that's needed, that makes the world a better place. A book that I read relatively recently, is by David Graeber. And it talks about work that isn't really work. It doesn't really accomplish anything. It's there. The reason it exists is so that somebody higher up can make a profit, and that it's just moving money around so that somebody else can have more of it. And the way that kind of work wears on somebody who chooses to do it, maybe because it pays more and they can provide more for their family, but they realize that they're not adding anything of value to the world. And that is psychologically harmful. It hurts people. It stresses them out. It frustrates them. It makes them feel meaningless. Yeah, there's a lot to think about in this poem, even without going into the poem, which I'm going to do. I love the simplicity of some of the analogies there, the metaphors. The work of the world is common as mud. Mud isn't just common and ordinary. It's also, things that something we tend to want to avoid. Don't get, if you get dirty, you have to clean up. It's not always sanitary. It can be not good for you. It can be unhealthy. My family has a saying, a little dirt never hurt, but don't go eating mud. It's not actually a part of this balanced breakfast. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles. So when work is meaningful, the work that needs to be done, don't mess it up because it doesn't last and it makes a mess on you. But the thing worth doing well done, then it lasts and is admired by others and is respected. And even sometimes, kind of put on a pedestal when really it has a purpose. And when it's put on a pedestal, it is not fulfilling that purpose. So a lot there. And then some of the repetition, some consonants swim off with sure strokes almost out of sight. And we also, in the next couple of lines, the black sleek heads of seals bouncing like half submerged balls. So there's also the B and the S, kind of, again, like the S is like the flow of the water. And the B is like bump, 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 bump. The seal is going up and down, bouncing, the B has that bouncing sound to it. An ox and a water buffalo, these signs of strength and of persistence and continuing strength, who do what has to be done again and again. The repetition of that word, that we keep going, we keep trying, it doesn't, meaningful work doesn't mean it's going to be easy or that it's just going to happen quickly. Meaningful change that lasts, takes time. If change happens really quickly, it's traumatic. Even if it's good, it can still be traumatizing if it happens really quickly when you go through a big change really quickly. That's, you got to end up taking the time to process it if the change itself didn't take much time. I like in the third stanza, I want to be with people who submerge in the task. That sense of the task being over and around you. But at the same time, you can't stay there. When you're submerged, you can't breathe. So eventually you do have to come up out of it just to breathe and to, go back out into the world and you kind of blink in the sunlight because when you go underwater, the quality of the light changes. And everything around you changes. You see, when you are in the ocean and you're in some place where you can like go snorkeling or something like that, you can look down into the water and you can see like the anemone and the coral and the fishies swimming around. But when you actually go down underneath and look around like through your mask, or if you are able to like open your eyes underwater, some people can do that, you can see it in a different way. The light changes, your vision changes, the sound changes. It's a complete shift. And so all around you, everything around you is the work. And so to have that analogy, that one hits me really, really, really strong, even though it's a brief one. And then she makes some more connections to work that is done corporately, work where we work together in a meaningful way. And that, again, as a teacher, that's something, I think as a teacher, it's something kind of unique because in many cases, you are just the teacher in your classroom. And it can feel like this is your work, just you. But at the same time, the students have other classes, and that you may not be their teacher for those classes. And so you're working with these other teachers that maybe you don't have a lot of contact with because they have this teacher and they have that, those students have that teacher and these students have those teachers. So you're working together, even though you're not working in each other's immediate proximity. There is still the sense of working together. And then, of course, there are the teachers that the students have had before you and the teachers that the students will have after you. So it's not quite the same as working in a field together or like a bucket brigade where each person passes the buckets, and the last one on throws the water onto the fire so that hopefully you can put the fire out before it does more damage. So it's not quite the same as that, but when you're in your room by yourself, it can be easy to forget that you're not alone. You're not doing this on your own, that you have colleagues who are doing the work with you. And so as a teacher, it's important to remind yourself of that. And it's also important to do what you can to foster those relationships and have strong working, healthy relationships with your colleagues. That's incredibly important as well. At the same time, though, I also try to remember that we have value outside of our utility. It can be easy to feel like you only matter in terms of how you help others. And that's just not true either. You matter just because, just for being you. That's something that I also keep in mind, that I am somebody who is very concerned with being productive and doing things. And a lot of that is because I'm also very aware that, we don't live forever. And there are a lot of things that I want to do and experience. But I'm also very careful to keep in mind that that's not what gives me value as a human being. I really want to emphasize that it's nice to be useful and helpful, but that is not what gives us value as human beings. And this poem doesn't really go into that. So I want to make sure I also address that. That is not what gives us value as human beings. We have value simply by existing. Each one of us is unique, and we change the world just by being in it. And that matters. So I hope that you will also take that into consideration as well. And I hope that you will do what you can to be helpful and to make the world a little better as your way of changing it. As always, thanks so much for sticking with me. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this poem. I'm going to try to remember to put a link down in the comments and so that you can read it and think about it on your own. And I would love to hear what you think about this poem and other poems that are your favorites. Love to hear about them. Leave me a comment and have a lovely day. Bye.